What is the biggest barrier to efficiently managing third-party data?
I think some of the issues with regard to third-party data have to do with disparate data sources. So you're dealing with a lot of different service providers, a lot of different vendors who are providing you with very similar data, but in very different formats. So sometimes you'll have one counterparty giving you an ISIN versus a CDAL when they're actually reporting information to you. But mapping those different data points can sometimes be difficult. Also, having different systems with regard to differences in very basic data points, different classifications can really present a challenge, because then you have to do some sort of exception management. You have to have some kind of exception reporting that really breaks down where the sources have gone bad and where they are correct.
Why is it important for firms to optimize their management of third-party data?
So it's vital because you want to make sure that you're reconciling between all of these different data sources. In terms of reporting internally for investors, for regulatory reporting, it's vital that you're confident that not only you have the correct data, but that you have multiple sources agree that it's the correct data. You always want to make sure that any outliers, you're able to classify as outliers and then say why you're being provided with different data than the other service providers have given you. I think that it's one of the major challenges from an IT perspective and from an operations perspective that a lot of organizations are facing. A lot of these different data sources have challenges associated with them just because of the lack of consistency between them.
What kinds of standards would help firms to better manage their third-party data sources?
I think it would be extremely helpful to have some sort of industry standard with regard to cash and position data that we're actually provided with from the service providers, from counterparties, that we can all agree as an industry to use. I think that there are some possibilities in doing this. One is maybe even creating an ISO standard out of position data, out of cash data, just being able to provide data for all asset classes. And then it'd be very simple to integrate a new counterparty, right? If you were integrating a new fund administrator, you were integrating a new prime broker, for instance, you could just say, hey, we're using this data spec. You should be familiar with it because you use it with all of your other clients. I think that's one of the challenges that a lot of service providers face today, is they have difficulty because there's a lot of knowledge internally about what clients deal with on a daily basis, but they don't really standardize for those clients. They kind of treat them as one-off problems rather than kind of trying to create a comprehensive solution for all the clients there. And I think that even if there's not an ISO standard, even some sort of internal industry standard for getting this data in a format that everyone agrees on could be very helpful. Something maybe even similar to the fixed protocol, where it's established by members of the industry, not necessarily an international standard, but the industry has agreed that this is how we're going to transmit trade data. We could do the same thing, I think, in the reconciliation field.
And what is the likelihood that these standards will become reality?
I think that an ISO standard might be a difficult reach, because it takes a lot of manpower. It takes a really big push, I think, by people in the industry to create that kind of standard. However, I think that it's much more likely that sort of an internal industry standard could be developed. I mean, even if that's kind of a grassroots effort by different funds, or if it's sort of a larger effort by an organization like DTCC, I think it could become, I think it can become very valuable to the industry.